Welcome to Filmi Ladies. We're here to celebrate the 20th anniversary of Kal Ho Na Ho and, among other things, one of my favorite song picturizations ever that I feel like if I ever decide to do a third advanced degree, I will do it on the song Pretty Woman because holy moly, there's so much going on here.
Yes.
Um, Special thanks to a Twitter follower named, I believe, Shosefia for suggesting we do this in the big ocean of anniversaries that are happening this fall for Shahrukh films. This one had not crossed my radar, I have to say, because I'll be honest, this is not one of my favorites. I feel this film is very uneven. There are things I love, like the soundtrack, and there are a lot of things I hate, like the homophobia and the fat shaming. Um, so this is a complicated movie in some ways, but it was good to rewatch it yesterday. And Pitu has been texting me all day about like, oh, I got this and this and this and this. And it's not all just Uday Chopra screenshots, Lunchy, this is for you. Uh,
Yes.
so I don't even know where to start. Maybe Pitu, like what are some of the things that were really grabbing you on this rewatch? And also like what are the things that have held up for you or not over the years?
So, like you, Kal Ho Na Ho is not one of my big favorite movies. I know this is a Nikhil Advani directorial, but I always think of it as a Karan Johar
Sure.
film because it just has a stamp all over it. My favorite Kejo movie is obviously K3G, which I've spoken about at length on this podcast. Kal Ho Na Ho is uneven for me as well. I also love Shahrukh as long as he's weepy and tortured, but I refuse to cross that line where he actually dies. So that is a personal pet peeve of mine. I refuse to watch that. So I actually have not seen this movie as many times as I've seen
Mm,
like Kuch Kuch Hota Hai or K3G or whatever.
mhm,
And I actually don't remember the last time I saw this. It must
mm,
have been like at least, I want to say at least 8 or 9 years ago.
okay.
So it's been a while. And so I kind of watched it this time again with sort of like new eyes, like I was revisiting again. And I I'd say like on the whole it held up for me.
Mhm.
I like that it's a 3 hour long Shah Rukh Khan fest because I'm here for all Shah Rukh Khan
That it
fests.
is.
He is just front and center and left and right and everywhere. And the kind of parallels that they have with him being something supernatural, which obviously he's not, but the allusion to him being an angel that God has sent and all of that. I was like, well, he is omnipresent like God. It's like the Virzara song, mein yahan hu, yahan hu, yahan. He's everywhere. So
I
I
mean,
like
they
that.
basically they frame him in a photo in a several scenes with the photo the painting of Jesus behind him. Sorry, I almost
Yeah.
said a photo of Jesus. That's obviously not a thing. Um, and I can't remember. I mean, I must have caught that the first time I watched this film, surely, but I was like, well, he's Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, I guess, so he can be
Yes.
everywhere.
And the spirit moves him in all the songs, doesn't it?
Sure does.
So I like the fact that there was Shahrukh and everything. I had also forgotten how incredibly charming Saif can be.
Oh,
He
that
is
was my
so
takeaway.
darling.
I mean,
Yeah.
justice for that character. And Seth is really, really, really good in this role, I think. And I think
Yeah.
it's also the best written of the roles in the film, but
Yes.
it's also he nails it. He's so, so good. And of course they have great chemistry together.
They
So
do.
while I do not love all their antics as co-hosts of events and stuff, you can see why.
Oh, no, no.
And like I don't think that I would have guessed that they would be so fun together, but they really are.
Seth actually does sort of like not sidekick, but he kind of plays like the second lead really
Yeah.
well. We've seen him with like Akshay Kumar and all of the older like movies, and even over here, he's really good in this sort of thing.
Mhm.
He's very charming, he's very cute. I was taken aback by how good a dancer he is because I never
Yeah,
think of
right?
right. I never think of Seth as a good dancer. Shahrukh, of course, but Seth,
Yeah,
but he
something
really yeah, like in It's the Time to Disco with his like orange lenses and his
uh-huh.
his sleeveless tank top shirt
Uh-huh.
vest thing and everything. Like he was so good. He was moving, and then in that song Kuch To Hua Hai, which is such a beautifully shot
Cute.
song,
Yeah, it's
he was
nice.
so lovely in that, like when he's checking
Yep.
himself out in the mirror and everything. And I was
Yeah.
like, wow, you are incredibly charming.
I think
um
something has had, we didn't talk about this as much in our Seth episode, although we did somewhat. Like I know a lot of people found his early dancing a little kind of frantic and muppety maybe, but
yes.
by this
Yeah.
point I think he's quite good.
Yeah.
And this is I mean, yes, somewhat in Dil Chahta Hai, and he has that another amazing picturization, one of my probably my
Yes.
very favorite, but I do think he's very, very strong in the songs in this film, which are very, very strong.
Yes, and he really looks like he's having a great time.
Yeah.
Like, he's having
Yeah.
fun, he has, like, a twinkle in his eye, he's adorable, and he never takes it too far.
Yeah.
Like, he never gets into sort of, like, manic pixie land, so
There's
I
a
like
lot
that.
of going too far in this film, I would say.
Yes,
And so
there is.
he was very wise to keep it pulled back a little. Although
Contained.
I don't think of him as someone who goes ham really very much. He must from time to
No,
time, but overall, that's not, I think, a critique that
I
would
don't
get
think of
levied at
him as
him.
hammy. I mean,
Yeah.
Shahrukh is hammy a lot of times,
And
despite my love for him,
just
but
so much hamminess baked into this story. And
yes.
then, um, almost all the other actors really put their
Yes.
foot down pretty heavy on that pedal.
Yeah.
So
I think Preeti is good, but God, she's so annoying in so many
that
scenes.
character is so
It's
irritating.
just she's so I kept wanting to say, and pardon my French, but also this is not necessarily a podcast for kids, but I kept saying, "Get that stick out of your butt." She was just
Yeah,
exhausting after a point. Like, I get it. I understand that it's hard to live in a house where your mom and your grandma are just constantly at each other's throat. They're like a bunch of pit bulls. They're so horrible.
they're
Anyone would
awful.
be so annoyed. I would be moving
Mhm.
out of that house
Right.
like stat. But oh my God, her character, it's like she's so mopey and such a downer. She actually reminds me of Moaning Myrtle from Harry Potter.
And she's so mean. She's
She
mean to
is.
her best friend Jazz,
I love Sweetu.
or Sweetu,
Sweetu.
I
Yeah.
mean. Like
Yeah.
Sweetu, like you can do better from a friend than that. Like
Yeah.
leave her.
So the
She's
funny
so
thing is,
mean.
I couldn't stand Naina, but although I think Preeti did a decent job, it's just the
Yeah,
character is so awful.
yeah,
But I actually wanted to be friends with Sweetu and Jazz because
totally.
they
They're
look
great.
adorable. Like Lilith Dubé and Dalnase Rani, I'll be friends with them any day. Like
Lila
Lilith Dubé
Dubé
especially cracked me up.
forever. I love
Yes.
her. I
With her
love
corset
her.
tops and her winking and her everything. She is awesome.
She's so great.
Um, so I was like, I can totally be friends with these two chicks. Jia Bachchan, very overwrought. Every time
Yeah.
I see these like Karan Johar, Jia Bachchan collaborations, I think to myself, how has Jia Bachchan being held up as this great like doyen of acting?
I don't
Because
know.
she is very, very hammy in a lot of the scenes. I was just like, can you just calm down for 2 seconds? Compared to her, Reema Lagoo, who plays Shah Rukh Khan's mom, was
Oh,
such a breath of fresh air. She
yeah.
was sensible and calm and sweet, and she reminded me of Aman's mom in Kuch Kuch Hota Hai. Like she was in that as well. So she was good. Sushma Seth was extremely irritating, but also made me laugh, and her character was terrible. But
Mm.
Sushma Seth just makes me laugh. I loved her and her two sisters and their god awful singing. I'd completely forgotten that for some reason. But I think my number one thing about this movie is the music, which is
Yeah.
phenomenal.
Yeah.
The fact that Shah Rukh Khan occupies every single frame, and the I love the fact that it's all the shots of New York. I loved it. It's been shot pretty much in all five boroughs, and then some of the opening shots of Toronto.
And
So
Toronto, let us not forget Toronto's noble service in this film.
I googled it. Apparently, they did a little they were doing some shooting in Toronto, but something happened with the SARS outbreak. And so they had to like
Oh,
they were
yeah,
like,
yeah,
no, no,
yeah,
no, we can't
yeah.
do that anymore. And then they had to like really focus on shooting in New York, which was
Mm.
the movie is set in New York anyway, but I think they were going to shoot in Toronto for like budget reasons.
Well, and
But then something happened with SARS.
somewhere I read that it was initially set in Toronto and then they changed
Okay.
it, and that would be why, I guess. But okay,
Yeah.
that explains a lot because there are some
Yeah.
very flagrantly Canadian things in this film.
Right. I also read that apparently New York was giving a lot of like like financial breaks for like film stuff, because this
To come
movie, I mean,
back.
it didn't come,
Yep.
I mean, it came out not too long after 9/11. I mean,
Yeah.
it was shot not too long after nine
Yeah.
eleven, so apparently it was like fairly economically possible to shoot over there. But yeah, it overall held up for me. The things that I disliked this time were the things I've always disliked. The whole Kanta Ben homophobic thing is so weird to me, but he does this, like Karan Johar does this even in like Dostana, and it's just kind of
Yep.
so and awful. And I'm like, it's bad enough for anyone to do it, but it's especially a disservice for him to do it. Like, come on. Um, did not appreciate the
Mm.
fat shaming. I don't care
No.
what Sweetu is ordering. She can order like 1 dozen donuts. It's none of your business. Again, in those scenes, I was like, why is Sweetu friends with Nana? I would never be friends
And
with
the
Nana.
to her face is so rude and just
Horrible.
harsh
So
for no
yeah,
reason.
well, even like the fat shaming with like is it Shahrukh or is it Seth? I think it's Seth. He's in the elevator and there's the bigger like the black dude in front of him and he calls him a gainda, which is like a bull, and I'm like why? Like that's it's just so unnecessary. And then the scenes where they have their restaurant and then there's the Chinese family in front of them that own the
Ugh.
restaurant, and I was like, you can want to make your own restaurant profitable and successful without like being mean to other people. It's just these little things that really like grate
They
even
really
20
do.
years later. But overall the movie works for me, but it's still not like one of my, like it's not
No.
my go-to movie as a Shahrukh fan. What about you?
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I- I'd be interested in your take on this too. As an American, I am the movies that are set here are always kind
Yeah.
of extra, they have that extra layer of interest to me. Karan Johar obviously has a very complicated set of opinions and thoughts about and experiences about the United States, which become much more
Yeah.
pronounced in My Name is Khan, obviously. But um, so like his depictions of not homosexuality, like he's trying to work through something, I think, in how he handles
Yeah.
America. And I'm sure I hadn't put together the filming right after 9/11 or near after 9/11. That explains the giant flag in Pretty Woman, which otherwise has no reason to be there at all.
Yeah.
Which I'd never thought about before. So I clearly have a lot of work to do to prepare my PhD thesis on this picturization. Um,
Oh,
yeah, I this is borderline mawkish to me. Like it's just cheesy. It's very cheesy in a direction that doesn't super work for me. I don't love the Rajesh Khanna film that's like this either.
right, Anand.
I don't love Anand. I know
Yeah.
I'm supposed to, and I just don't. If they had sort of pulled back on some of that aspect of it, I think I would like it a lot more, because for a while there, you're kind of swinging between horribly mean Naina, and I don't feel that they really quite do enough with the grief that I assume is supposed to be kind of the core of why she's like the way she is. Um,
Oh,
I do,
is it?
I guess, because she's going to the place to remember her dad, and but I don't know. I don't know. I don't think they really maybe put as much on attention to that as they should, given how much attention they spend on some other things. Um, and yeah, echo the grown-ups in her house are terrible. And I mean, they don't actually, I don't think she says, I'm not moving out because I want to stay to kind of protect the two youngers, but you can imagine that that's true.
Right.
Because the grandmother especially, but her mother too, are just horrible. But yeah, so you have this mean lead character who's actually narrating the film, saying that this is her story. And in her own story, she depicts herself as being so horrible, which makes me think she's maybe even
Yeah.
worse than that to if
Right.
other people were telling the story. And then you get these weird, like various phobic things. And I mean, Shahrukh has turned it well past 11 into like 17 in this movie. In some scenes that it's too much for me. Um,
Yeah.
and especially his, when he's like, oh, I'm making a joke, or when he's with the little, I think you were saying in one of our, maybe in Joanne, that you like him with the little girl, but like here I find
I
he's
do.
just ridiculous with the little kids in a way. There's not much of it, but
Right.
they're not three.
Right.
They are like 10 and 7 or 6 or something. So I don't know. It's an awful lot. However, the middle third in particular, I really enjoyed. And the
Mhm.
whole kind of 2000s rom-com aspect of the like, here's in 6 days, make the
I like
woman,
that.
kind of fall for you. That actually worked for me fairly well. I don't need it in every movie. It just, this one is fine, but like that was cute with the like little
Yeah.
cameos of people and the different extras saying some of the days. So like that was kind of funny, and it gives Seth a chance to be funny, which I thought he did a good job with. And then at that point, Preeti slash Naina gets to chill out a little bit and be kind of more emotionally open, which is, and she does a good job with that. I mean, I'm clearly on record as
Yeah.
liking Pretty Zinta a lot, but, and then the final third is, it's an awful lot again.
It's a slog.
Apart from the kind of wedding song stuff, I don't really need. And then at the, when there were about 25 minutes left, I just kept looking at my watch. I was like, I want to go to bed. When is this over? I know how this ends, but there was so much in this that I didn't really remember very well. I did want to fully watch it. But
Yeah.
also, I just want to say at the end, it's so funny that the whole movie is supposed to have been 20 years ago. So now we are at the point where this movie kind of starts and ends. And it's so
Yeah.
funny how not like themselves 20 years from then Preeti and Safe actually look now.
Right.
So that, they don't show their grays like so.
Right.
So that was just kind of satisfying to watch it. But I don't. Yeah, this is not a movie their components I love. Like I said, I think this soundtrack is pretty much top to bottom fantastic.
Yeah.
Cannot sit still. Like I got off my couch and was dancing around during Pretty Woman and It's the Time to Disco and Mahi Ve. Um,
Mhm. I
and
squealed a little in Mahi Ve when Kajol and Rani Mukherjee showed up.
yeah, and
I
I
always
mean,
enjoy that.
yeah, and I knew it was coming, but it was still nice to see.
Yeah.
And um, I don't know. This is a real mishmash of a movie to me, and it's interesting to look at how many awards it got because I don't feel that
Yeah.
that's really particularly merited. I'm not sure what else was out that in competition
Yeah.
with it, but um, I don't know. Shahrukh is a Jesus angel, like kind of a lot. I
I,
get
I was
it, but
wondering I was wondering about like Shah Rukh's very very obvious overacting in the scenes where he's like all sick and everything and the sweat and it's like everything is amped up so much. It's like he can't sweat a little. He has to sweat buckets.
all
He
the sweat,
can't he can't
all the
be a
fake
little
blood.
bit tired. He has to be
Yeah,
very very exhausted like he ran a marathon.
they should have
He
just
can't
given him
just
some fake
pant a
blood.
little. Yeah, he can't just pant a little. He has to be completely out of breath. It's like he looks like he's on his deathbed, but he looks like he's on his death. There's so many times that I didn't know how many times to gasp.
I know.
I was like, okay, is this the end? Wait, is this the end? And then the actual like deathbed scene, it was everything is so overwrought. And I do have to wonder here how much of that is Shah Rukh's own input. Not to take away from the fact that Karan Johar himself loves to be overwrought.
Right.
I love K3G, so I know what I'm getting myself into. And Nikhil Advani, I presume, is similar, so I don't know. But we know that the extremely convoluted, extremely violent, completely bloody ending of Bazigar was very much Shah Rukh's idea, and that multiple people on set were like, "This is a little over the top." Um, and I think I've read something about Pardes as well. Like even at the, I know
Mm,
you haven't seen Pardes, but even at the end of Pardes, at the train station when he's all bloody, I vaguely remember hearing that he wanted them to like really amp it up. So I have to wonder how much of
yeah.
this was Shah Rukh just saying like, no, let's just dial it all the way to the top, and then Karan Johar just couldn't say no to him because
Mhm.
this just has like Shah Rukh Khan's stamp all over it.
I have a question about the sort of last 15 minutes or so, which I had
Oh,
not really remembered as well as I thought I did. Um, so poor Nana spends the last half hour or so of this film crying. Um, and I do love the well-timed like oops reveal of they're not married and
yeah,
Amen wasn't her.
she's his doctor.
Yeah, and all that kind of stuff. So that's fun, but it's poor Nana. And I am curious what you think about why she went ahead and married Rohit, or at least why they did it right then instead of like let's put a pause on this for another,
Yeah.
like, let's let him pass away, maybe. Or no, I guess that he really wanted them to be married so he could know she was taken care of. Cause like, I guess it takes a man to do that and she can't take
Yeah.
care of herself. And like, and Lord knows her family's not helpful. So, okay. But I just kind of thought, wouldn't, if this was actually happening, wouldn't you maybe just say, I'm not in a state where I can take vows in front of a bunch of people right now? And that would be okay. I don't know. I mean, I
Well,
know they've got the French wedding designer in and or wedding planner
yes.
in, but like I'm sure they can pay out and like stall him a bit.
Right. Well, I don't even, well, before I even answer your question, I was actually thinking, because we had just seen Kuch Kuch Hota Hai not too long ago. And one of the things I remember that both of us liked about Kuch Kuch Hota Hai was the fact that when Anjali basically says that she's gonna marry Aman because he's kind of like, he's right in every single way, like he checks all boxes basically, but she doesn't love him and it's a compromise. And the mom in that situation, Rima Lagu, basically says to her, like, I don't want my daughter to compromise, I want my daughter
Yeah.
to have love. And we both liked that. It was so refreshing, especially in contrast to Farida Jalal going on and on and on and on about how Shahrukh's character should get married. And so in this movie, it's actually exactly flipped, because in this movie, it's kind of like, well, yes, I know you love Shahrukh, and you can't or you shouldn't be with Shahrukh because he's like terminal or whatever. But look, Seth is so nice, and so you should just be with Seth. And it was just kind of like, okay, but she's compromising. She doesn't actually love him. She loves Shahrukh, and it felt very like patronizing, infantilizing. It felt like a game of passing the parcel, where it's kind of like, or hot potato, where it's like, well, I can't, and so therefore you should. And it was just very cringy to me. And I hadn't noticed that because I haven't seen Kal Ho Na Ho in so long, but it was just kind of like, so Seth loves Preeti, but Preeti doesn't actually love him. So essentially, then it's a compromise from her end, and she's marrying him due to things like maybe security, but also because Shahrukh is emotionally blackmailing her into doing that. And if so, that's pretty manipulative, because you're
Very
saying, well, I love
manipulative.
you and I'm going to die. So I'm going to find you someone who's sort of a substitute for me that you can marry, and then I'll know you'll be taken care of. And then that reminded me of Devdas, where Aishwarya is going to get married to, I forget the actor she's married to in Devdas, but she's going to get married to him in that song Hamesha Tumko Chaha. And Shahrukh is next to her and he's holding her hand. He's almost like walking her down the aisle, sort
Mm.
of, in that. And it was essentially a similar thing in that as well. And I was like, what is with this rubbish of like, I can't marry you, and so therefore I have to find you someone else, or we need to get you married off to somebody else. And there is a third option, which is called waiting until you can find someone who is available and like that you actually love.
And like
And
waiting
nobody
till
in this film
you're,
mentions it.
yeah, like wait till you're available. She's not emotionally
She's not
available
either. She's
at all.
crying
Like,
at her own engagement, she's crying at her own
yeah,
wedding.
like
It's
Rohit
just,
deserves better.
he does. I
Yeah.
was not team justice for Aman in Kuch Kuch Hota Hai, because I'm never team Salman Khan, among other reasons. But I am team Rohit in this. Like, he does deserve better than that. He's basically going to get married to this chick who like is obsessed with Shahrukh, and now there's the added trauma of him dying, and he's always going to wonder. Like, it's so screwed up,
Yeah.
and it in some ways makes me appreciate Kuch Kuch Hota Hai more, because of that one dialogue where Rima Lagu's character was like, I don't want my daughter to marry someone who's like, I don't want my daughter to compromise. So I didn't like that at all, and I
No.
was just kind of like, this is icky and is manipulative and is emotional blackmailing and it's regressive, and I don't like it one bit. But I was so upset by that I completely forgot your question. What was your question, Beth? What
Oh,
did you
just like
actually
why
ask
does she
me?
go ahead with it at that
Oh,
time?
I think she's just, I think she's, you know, I feel like Naina is a person who has absolutely no self-knowledge and self-awareness, and she comes across as
Ah,
extremely unevolved to me. Say
yeah,
what you will about Jazz's character, Lilith, the base character, she's clearly meant to be the comic relief, and she's supposed to be like the horny older woman or whatever. But you know what? The woman knows who she is. She knows who she is. She has pride. She's strong, and yeah, sometimes she does some cringy things, but it's okay. At least she knows who she is. I don't think Naina has any idea who she is. She just comes
yeah.
across as this completely sort of a blank page that Aman is writing things
Mm.
into, and now Rohit is going to write things into. And there's the strife of her mom and her dadi. Then there's the trauma of her dad's suicide. Then there's knowing who Gia actually is, and it's just she never feels in charge of her own destiny. She just seems like this very passive person who just goes from here to here. Here's the thing, the basic premise of this movie is that here's this angel person, lovely, darling, terminal guy who's going to come and make your life happy and going to make you happy, except that never works. No one can make you happy. You need to
Yeah,
be happy.
you have
But I
to.
don't know.
Yeah.
But what does Nana like? I don't even
Yeah, I
know.
don't know.
What could make Nana happy? Because but I don't think she knows either. So I don't
No.
know. She's a very underdeveloped character, but she's
Yeah,
she's just a very unevolved person, I think,
yeah.
weirdly.
One of the
So I
things
don't
that
know.
struck me in this movie, this rewatch, I mean, is that there are, it's a long movie, it's 3 hours,
Yes.
but there are at least three movies in this movie. So you could have a whole movie about the dad who takes,
Yes.
chooses to, who dies by suicide
Yes.
because he's had an affair and fathered a child. And the mother of that child also rejects the poor child. Like, that's a
Yeah.
movie.
Yes.
A struggling business by immigrants. That's a movie.
Yeah, which is
A
women
young,
owned. Owned
yeah,
by two women who are best friends.
yeah. Their
Yeah.
friendship, yeah, like that could whole be a thing.
Yeah.
Nena trying to figure out who she is, especially in the wake of her father's death, and dealing with her family who most of them are operating in the dark about his death.
Mhm.
That's a movie. Rohit getting his shiz together to be a more mature person. That's a movie.
Yeah.
The heart disease, following, a heart patient coming to America to follow a doctor, blah, 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 blah. That's a whole movie.
Yeah.
There's so many things going on in this movie.
There's a
And
lot.
on this rewatch, obviously I'm on record as saying I don't really need more about business, 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 but I actually wanted more about their business. And like,
Yeah.
I find their use of Chale Chalo really funny when
Yeah, it
they
was funny.
put I love a getting stuff done montage, and that's a great,
Yeah.
like, that's a really strong moment for me. They seem to all be having the time of their lives,
Yes.
like having a goof on that movie, on that song, which
Yeah.
I love it. It was very funny. Um, or even just a more generalized, like we have chosen for various reasons to be in America, because I was Nana born in the United States, I think.
I would assume so.
Okay. um Accents do not indicate that, but okay.
Right, right.
But yeah, like how did her parents come to the United States or whatever, like that's a whole
Yeah.
thing they could have done. I don't know, there's just so much happening in this
I think one of the most
movie.
interesting things to me, actually, that I would love to see explored in perhaps a completely different film would be these two women who are connected to each other through the man, like Jaya Bachchan's
Yeah,
character and Sushma Sen's character, her husband, her son, and now he's dead. And how do they reconcile? I actually
yeah.
I actually liked the thing. I mean, it was very ham-handed and like shoved in and everything, but I kind of liked the moment when they sort of like kind of try to make
Mm.
try to see each other's point of view, and Sushma Sen essentially is trying to apologize to Jenny, and then Jenny starts crying. And I actually like that was the one scene in the film that actually made me tear up a little bit, because I was like, yeah, you both lost someone you love. The least you could do is be nice to each other and care for each other. Instead, you're just screaming at each other all
I
day.
was
And then,
frustrated that Aman decided when that was going to happen.
yes, but Aman
Like,
is very much the
but
puppeteer in
of
this
all,
film.
this is the most serious of all the things
Yes.
he has interfered in. And I really wish he had maybe taken Jenny aside and said, I know this would be hard. What if you really consider telling everyone
Right.
what happened. And then she decides to do it. Like
Yeah.
that would have worked. He could still be Angel Jesus and
Yeah.
get his credits for that and like get his wings or whatever. But
Yeah. Also, the way that he discovers the truth, isn't it because he gets the letter by mistake?
I think so.
Okay,
I
so
lost
let me
track.
just say the postal service as depicted in this film is absolutely like they employ the worst people,
I
like the
love the
biggest
postal
morons.
service.
I do too, but it's like they can't keep the Kapoors and the Kapoors straight. And now the Chaddas mails is coming to the Kapoors. No, the Kapoors mail is coming to the Chaddas. And I was like, okay, in all my years of living in America, I have gotten my neighbor's mail like once.
I get my neighbor's mail from time to time because I am 203 North and they are 203 South. But like
Okay.
these two people are going to have entirely different house numbers, which are
Yes.
probably on the mail. They are on the mail and then they are on the house. So like I have great faith in the US Postal Service,
Yeah.
saving elections, by the way. Um,
Yeah.
you know, this is very silly.
But I was like, okay, who is the mailman on this route?
Or like, if this is going to be such a plot device, make them neighbors in an apartment building
Yes.
where one is A and one is B, or 203 and 204 or something. Like put them, or their mailboxes are alphabetical. And so the KAPs get
Right.
like, don't have them be across the street in different houses. Like that's just silly. Silly.
So yeah, that made me giggle. But he basically finds out the truth about what had happened through a letter because he gets the letter and then he reads it and he's all like, ah, and then he goes and I was like, what?
Which relatable, I
There's
would
a
read
lot
it too.
happening. I
So
also felt like the person who wrote it, like her handwriting is very nice.
yeah. Um, I missed this and I don't remember it from before. And as stated previously, sometimes I am a dumb. Um, did Nana know her dad's true story before the letter or not?
I feel like she did.
Okay. Because
But
I
the
don't think we
only
see
reason
her.
but the only reason I think so, it's not actually implied in the film, I don't think at all.
Mm,
But the only reason I think so is because so let's assume that Nana's what? She's doing her MBA. So let's say she's 23,
yeah,
24
say
years old.
23. Yeah.
And the little girl, Gia, is what, like 8?
6, 8. Yeah,
6?
something like
I
that.
can't I
Little.
can't
She's
tell I
little.
can't
Yeah.
identify small children. They all look the same to me.
Yeah.
I'm like, ah, yes, you're 4 years old. People are like, he's 8. I'm like, oh. So I mean, she has to know that Gia is well, no, that she's adopted. So, because I was gonna say, wouldn't she
Right.
have known that her mom didn't get pregnant with her, but then the stories that she's but still, she would have been a teenager if they actually do you even know like, adoption is hard, you guys. It's really,
Right.
really difficult. If you're gonna adopt a child, and especially if you're adopting a child that presumably is Indian, because she looks Indian, so then if you're getting her eh, there's no way that there was an adoption process happening in the house and like whatever year old Nana like in her late teens would not know. It's just not possible.
Yeah,
So my
that's true.
assumption is that she knew but decided to. But that's just my guesswork.
Yeah, because we
I
don't
don't
really
think the movie
see
addresses it.
her. I feel like we don't really see her. We don't see a scene of revelation for her that I understood
No.
anyway. And again, subtitles. So like, I did a little interesting subtitle experiment with this because this is on Netflix in the US if you want to watch it, if you're in
Yeah.
the United States. And it also, of course, on Eintusen. And I was hopping back and forth between the two, and the subtitles are different between the two
Are
versions,
they?
which was really interesting. So, um, it
Did
was
you
just a
feel like
reminder to me of like what I miss.
But I feel like the subtitles in this were pretty good because I watched it on Netflix as well,
Mhm.
but it was just so noisy in my house. Like I had the subtitles on, and I felt like the subtitles were pretty good. I have seen Hindi movies where I read the subtitles and I'm like, good God, I feel bad for anybody who has to watch this and not understand because they're so bad. But this one I felt like was pretty decent, at least what I saw
Mhm.
on Netflix.
Good.
Um, what do you think about so why do you okay, how do you feel about Jia Bachchan as an actress? Every time I see her in Keijo
I
films,
don't know. I don't think that Keijo films are her best work.
right?
Or like they're not an actor director pair that
They're
I
not a
think
good fit.
does. Yeah, which makes sense to me because her wheelhouse, at least persona wise and all, or like I don't mean persona as in her non-screen persona. I mean
Oh
her
yeah.
her
Her
acting
non-screen persona is
vibe or
terrible.
whatever, right? Is not his
Yeah.
thing. And even if we take him as the
Farida
inheritor,
Jalal is his thing. He
right.
should have cast Farida Jalal actually. But
Yeah. This
Farida Jalal
probably
would have been too cheerful.
this is probably my favorite of her appearances in his films, I guess. Because
Okay.
I find this now, so again, like with Rocky or Ronnie, like, is she supposed to be like that? Is she supposed to be as much as she is? I don't know. And I've only watched it the one
Right.
time. I'm willing to hear, you know, like I'm open to argument on that front. But I kind of, when I watched that movie, I felt like some of that was Jaya going
Her.
beyond what was written and maybe how she was direct. I mean, I don't know. And can you
Yeah.
direct her? Like, will she take direction? I can imagine it's possible. She feels she's better than Keijo
Right.
and doesn't really listen to him. Like, this may not be the performance he wants out of her. I think any combination of that is possible. Maybe she goes ham because she thinks ham is his thing, and really it's a little more complicated than that, or what.
Yeah.
I don't know, and I don't mean to belittle either of them. I just mean whatever. I don't think he's getting from her in his films the performance that I would want her to give in those
Yeah.
roles, even knowing what I understand about the characters. Like, you could tone it down by 15-20%, it would still be very effective. It would still be a little bit on the extra side, but it wouldn't be quite so much. So this one for me is the most restrained of her work in his films. And I also really like actually that they cast her, like, she's not a person I really ever thought I'd see in jeans and a sweatshirt. And there she is, right?
Yeah.
They've kind of made her look like someone who has kind of acculturated to a certain kind of American way of being. Not saying she has to or she should, but I think that they
Right.
did, like the ponytail and the, the kind of
Yeah.
casual. We don't see her in Indian clothes very much in the film, for example. But it's pretty interesting because I definitely think of Jaya Bachchan as someone always in a sari,
Yes.
especially at
Yeah.
this point in her life, right? So
Right. Right.
that's pretty interesting to me. Um, so
Yeah,
yeah,
I was just taken aback by how bad she is. She's so bad in this movie. And I'm always like, this is a person that is held up as being a great actor.
sure.
How come?
Yeah.
Why?
Well, this is, yeah, that there must be some mega fans out there who could speak to her sort of 2000s and onward stuff. But yeah, this is of the Keijo films, I like this the most, but it's not
But
a
then
performance for
also,
her I would remember really.
right. Well, what you said just also made me think of something else. Like, okay, everyone always talks about how all these Nepo babies, like, they literally refer to these like mega stars as like uncle and auntie, right? Like,
Right.
to them,
Right.
Amitabh is uncle and
Yeah.
Jaya is like auntie or whatever. And you have to wonder, like, how strange that must be for them. Like, you're
Yeah.
essentially directing some like big-headed, gigantically egotistic superstar who just happens to be someone you've known since you were very, very little, and then you're going to have the temerity to direct them. And how are you ever supposed to say to them, yeah,
Yeah.
that was kind of a bad take, I think you should do that again? Like, you would never
Right.
be able to.
It's a good
So
question.
maybe it's like a double-edged sword, but it's like, because you have access, because you're Karan Johar or whatever, you can actually cast these people. Like, you can do your very first movie with like big names just because of the clout your family has. But on the other hand, there's no direction that's happening
And
here.
and in this case, nobody went to see this movie for Jaya Bachchan.
No.
I don't think.
No.
I doubt, like maybe 5%, but probably not. So like it didn't need to be her, I don't think. And
Right.
the same is not true of her husband typically. So like, you want paterfamilias, if you can get him,
Yes.
you're gonna take him. I get that. I get that.
Yeah.
But she, I don't think has that. If
She
she
doesn't have
has
that
that
pull.
appeal, I'm not aware of it. Yeah.
No, I've never heard of her having that kind of pull. Oh, speaking of paterfamilias, how adorable and cute was Dara Singh?
Oh, so
He
cute.
was so darling. He was, I completely forgot he was in this movie, but
Yeah.
his like
Yeah.
romance with like
The little
Sushma Singh
picture of
just
him
really
in the
captivated.
background when he was younger, and
Yeah,
yeah,
but
that was
he's
fun.
handsome. I was
He
like,
is.
wow, he like aged his, some of these like older like Bollywood men, like some of these senior actors like Prem Chopra and
Yeah.
Danny Denzongpa. I know Danny Denzongpa is not the same generation, but
Right.
still, like, Danny
Prawn. Yeah.
Denzongpa or Pran or Dara saying, like, I'm amazed at how well they've aged. I was like, what is your drop your skincare line, Dara saying? There was not one wrinkle on that brow. And then in Pretty Woman, when he was like beating the dhol, I
Yeah.
mean, his physique, I was like, why have I not seen more Dara Singh films? Oh, right, because I'm not into wrestling.
But he's got some fun like stunt films and stuff.
Right.
We should watch some of those. Yeah, he's always fun when he shows up in my estimation.
Right. How do you feel about, like, so this is the infamous movie that resulted in Bebo and Karan Johar having like a big spat, and they didn't speak for like several years until she apologized to him or whatever, right? Because
Uh,
apparently, yeah, which is also so cringe. Karan Johar loves talking about that on KWK because I think it makes him feel good. He had apparently offered Naina's role to Kareena Kapoor, and he thought she would like jump at the opportunity, but apparently she asked for a lot of money, according to him. And so he gave it to Preeti instead. And that led to them not speaking for many years. And I was like, that sounds so weird and juvenile. And also, what is wrong with asking for more money?
Women
Like,
aren't supposed to
there's
do
lots
that.
of, yeah, like there's lots of Bebo fans who would go. I mean, I have to admit, like, I don't mind Preeti in this movie, but I would have preferred Bebo to be in it. I think she would have brought a little bit more nuance instead of being
Yeah,
as
that's
like
an
straight
interesting
up annoying.
thought. Yeah, and there's something her annoyingness is funny.
Yeah.
Somehow, like, I mean, we can't have Nana be poo
No.
for sure. She would have had to found a different way to do it. But I also think she could. Ooh, but I mean, her chemistry with Seth on screen is
Oh,
not amazing.
this
I
is
think it's okay,
true.
but like that's at that point also was obviously pre so I don't know, maybe that was part of it too. Like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, you're right. No, because like Preeti and Seth chemistry is fire.
It's good. It's
Preeti
really
and
good.
Seth,
Yeah.
Rani and Seth, so good.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen Kajol and Seth together?
I
I
was
feel like
thinking
it
about
wouldn't
that
work.
actually. They have some in the 90s, right? And they don't,
Really?
that's not, don't they?
I don't
I'm pretty
know.
sure. I know
Nothing
they're
is
in
coming
some
to
movies.
mind. Huh. Interesting.
Yeah,
I
but no,
think the
I don't need
worst.
that for sure.
No, I don't need that. No, no, no. I think the worst Kajal pairing that I have ever seen was Kajal and Amir Khan and Fana. It was it was so weird, Beth. It was just the weirdest thing ever. It was like oil and water. I was
I
so
mean,
uncomfortable
it's
watching that
one of
whole
those you're
film.
like, oh, they're together finally. You're like, well, there's a reason they haven't been together.
Yeah, so bad together. And I like
Yeah.
Kajal just fine by herself or with other people. And I like Amir just fine with himself or with other people. But
Hmm.
Kajal and Amir together, and it's like, no, 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 no. That is no,
It
absolutely not.
is
That
kind
is
of
like,
weird that they never were in a film,
I think probably because people saw their screen test and they were like, this is hideous. Absolutely not.
one of them has to
We are
go.
not doing that. Yeah. Did you I was gonna say, can you think of something that would make this movie better for us? I mean, obviously, the homophobia and the fat shaming and the casual racism, all of those things could be deleted pretty
Just
easily,
cut
I
it super
think.
easily. Just cut,
Yeah,
cut, cut, cut,
that would be
cut.
very
Yeah.
easy to do. But I feel like
Um,
one of the biggest flaws in this film, honestly, is the whole like hot potato passing the parcel. I can't have
yeah.
you, so therefore you're gonna. And I
And
just don't. I don't know how you fix that.
that's pretty baked in.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, okay, so this thought just came to my mind, so it's
Yeah.
not very well formed, but this movie very much is fairly unapologetically what it is, you know?
Yeah.
So if that doesn't work for maybe someone like me, then for me to wish it to be a little bit different, maybe it just wouldn't exist at all. That kind,
Yeah.
something kind of like that. And then I was trying to think very quickly, okay, well, what's a movie that's less is more apologetically who is what it is that you could change and have it so, yeah, so like I don't know, in theory we want each artwork to be what it was meant to be and whatever, but yeah, I don't know. I will say one of the things I actually like about this film, which I realize is not what you just asked me, is that I think that this actually it doesn't dwell on any kind of like, well, our culture isn't respected here, blah, 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 blah. Like
Right.
it doesn't do any of that kind of stuff, which is interesting. And I feel like often, even by this point in history, you get if a film is set in an Indian film is set in not India, you're going to get some of that. And we don't really
Yeah.
get it in there. These are people who have seemed to have found ways to, especially the grandmother, to bring with her what she wanted. And, we have the different generations not living
Yeah.
super happily together, but the reason they're not living
Right.
happily together is the father's death. It's not the
Right.
fact that they're, as far as we know, like, and there's no, at least that I caught, there's no like, well, he never would have cheated if you had stayed in India or anything like that, right? Like that doesn't
Right.
happen. So
Yeah.
it's kind of a not, there's no demonization of anybody really in this film,
No.
anybody or anything, which is nice. And they even are what kind, at least, about the deceased father, which
Yeah.
is pretty generous, I think, for these movie characters in 2003. So I don't know. So that's the thing that I actually like. But yeah, in terms of changing something, it didn't work for me. I don't know if I could pull a couple things out and have it still
Yeah.
really exist. I think you could dial Shahrukh back quite a bit and he would still work. If you could make him do it. Again, like, what's it like to try to direct him? I don't know. In certain cases, I suspect it works well. With this, especially with Keijo, like probably in the wings all the time, but not actually the director, like that sounds really hard. I don't know.
I think Shahrukh works great when he has a director that is older than him that he looks up to, the Yash Chopras of the world or whatever.
Mm,
But when it's someone like Aditya Chopra or Karan Johar, someone that he clearly thinks of as like his younger brother or something, or as being far more raw than he himself is, because when these people were complete newbies, Shah Rukh Khan was a bona fide star. You
right.
know, I
Right.
think Shah Rukh probably doesn't take very good direction from them because he
That's a
doesn't
good
have to. He's
question.
Shah Rukh Khan.
Yeah.
So you're lucky he's in your movie.
Wasn't it interesting to realize that this movie is closer to Bazigar than we are to this movie in time?
Yeah. He also looks so different in it, Beth. He looks
Yeah,
so good. This is like peak Shah Rukh, like
pretty good.
handsomeness wise to me. Like he looks
Which is
very good.
why Minikon is modeled on this very song. There he is.
Yay!
I can't
And
remember if
Minnie
this is
Khan was
the
dancing.
if Minikon was dancing. And for those who are not watching on YouTube, I have my Shahrukh doll who has the orange cargo pants from Pretty Woman. He's
Yes.
wearing them, and then a jean jacket and a t-shirt that I don't think that's what he came in. I've lost track of what I think his original outfit is actually the Pretty Woman outfit. I can't remember, but
Right.
um oh, I've derailed myself. What was I gonna say? Oh no, what were we talking about?
I
Oh
don't
no.
know. I
Oh,
forgot.
just how old this is. Like, it's
Yeah.
shocking to me that this has been 20 years. Um it is one thing I also want to say is that um while there is no doubt that he is the hero of this movie, he did also agree to do a movie where he ultimately, in a way, doesn't get the girl. Now,
Yes.
there's a real rose pinned on that with like, well, I get her in the next life. And then also the
Right.
fact that she clearly is grieving him during her marriage to someone else. So like, in a way, he doesn't really not get the girl, but like at least a little bit. And I feel like there are some actors of stars of his level who wouldn't have done it.
Right.
Maybe not. Maybe the immense weep fest of the last 20 minutes or so actually makes it perfectly clear that he does get the girl or whatever. But I don't know. I kind of liked that aspect. I was thinking about that a little bit and how, I don't know. I can imagine some may not have been willing to do that. But I mean, obviously he maintains the heroic image and everything like that. So
Right. Interesting. Um, I have to say, I don't particularly care for the movie that this is supposedly modeled on, which is Anand, the
no,
Amitabh and Rajesh Khanna movie. But I will
no.
say that Rajesh Khanna was far more restrained in that film than as Shah Rukh is in this.
And that, whew, damning
Yeah.
with faint praise.
Yeah, no, he definitely dialed it a lot back, and he was definitely
Yeah.
far more restrained. It's also a movie made by a better director, to be fair. So,
Mhm.
Anand is a Hrishikesh Mukherjee movie. It's not a Karan Johar or Nikhil Advani movie. So having said that, I'm not a big fan of Anand either, but it's fine. I do like Bawarchi though, which is another movie that this movie sort of copies from. Have you seen Bawarchi? It's so adorable. It's
No, I
I think
haven't.
Bawarchi
That's
is
on
also
my,
Hrishikesh Mukherjee.
yeah, I
It's
think
very
so.
cute. It
Yeah.
also has Jaya Bachchan in it. So it has Rajesh Khanna playing this sort of Mary Poppins like character, where
Mhm.
he like goes to troubled houses and he works there as like their chef or their cook or whatever, and then he solves all their problems. It's very lighthearted and very sweet, very typical Hrishikesh Mukherjee. And Rajesh Khanna is extremely adorable and charming in it. It's a very sweet film,
Mm.
and just sort of like a feel good movie. And so this movie does borrow a little bit from that also, where he's kind of this Mary Poppins in orange pants, where he like waves his thing mentally and, you know, fixes problems. And now like people are like liking each other, I
You
guess.
know, that is an interesting thing to think about, because maybe that's what for me would fix this a little bit, if we could
Mm.
lighten up on the medical aspect, and he comes and goes for other reasons, not
Ah,
fatal heart condition reasons.
yes.
And maybe he just knows that he doesn't want to be he doesn't want to get married, whatever, right? Like
Mm.
maybe a mainstream hero isn't allowed to have that opinion, but let's just say, for
Right.
argument's sake, that he doesn't want to get married for some reason, and so
You know
he
what
can
would
just
be
sort of match make
acceptable?
and fix.
Right. Socially acceptable would be if he is the hero who doesn't want to get married, but that's because he's grieving the death of his
Ah,
recently dead wife. That would be
there
acceptable.
we
So
go.
he's grieving Rani Mukherjee from Kuch Kuch Hota Hai. And so then he could
Right.
do the matchmaking thing. What is that Will Smith movie where he basically is like the matchmaker and he goes around?
Partner.
No,
No,
not
that's the Hindi one.
that's the Hindi
Hitch,
version of
hitch, hitch.
Hitch. Yeah. So he could be something like that. Maybe that would
Yeah,
work better than the whole like I am dying of a terminal disease sort of a thing. Also, I don't buy Sonali Bendre as a doctor.
she's not great in this role.
No.
I mean,
I was
I
like,
couldn't even tell you
she's the
what films of
doctor?
hers I've seen, but
My
what's
favorite
his
Sonali Bendre movies are the ones where she's with Sunil Shetty because they're both very bad, but she's so cute in them. And Sunil Shetty is such a terrible actor that he makes her look like a thespian. It's like seriously, if you watch a Sonali Bendre and Sunil Shetty
Oh,
movie, you're gonna come away from that thinking she's the next Nargis. Because
wow.
it's all relative. It's all relative.
Oh. I mean, my main Sunil Shetty memory is always Mehuna. So I think
Right.
he's very funny in that. I think
Yeah.
he's like they have fun with that in that. So I like him, but I don't know enough, and his main body of work is never going to appeal to me.
Yeah.
So I probably will never watch most of it. So
You should watch at least one of his movies. It's just sort of like a dare to yourself.
I've certainly seen some songs and I'm like, oh yeah, this era.
Oh, the songs don't do it justice. There's a movie of his which I've forgotten the name, but one of my friends loves that movie, and he like always references this one scene where Sunil Shetty, I forget the name, but Sunil Shetty is being chased down this alley by like goons or whatever, and they're chasing him and he needs to like fight back, but he's not sufficiently angry yet. So
Hmm.
to make himself sufficiently angry, he grabs like some sort of implement, like something sharp, and he cuts his own like stomach open, like he just like gashes at his
Good
stomach.
Lord.
Yes, to make himself angry, right? Like to hype himself up. And then he like charges at the goons and he goes like screaming at them and they're terrified. Like there's sheer
Oh.
terror in their face. And like he basically just drives them out because they're like, okay, we can't out lunatic this lunatic. So they're like, we're out. My friend loves that scene. My friend has very questionable taste in cinema. You should meet him.
I am taking a quick look at the other films of 2003 just to
Mm,
help contextualize ourselves a little bit. So let me read you this list. I'm going
okay.
in from Wikipedia, highest grossing starting, which is this one. Koi Mil Gaya,
Ah, okay.
the hero love story of a spy.
Is
Chalte
that the one that
Chalte,
has Preeti Zinta in it also? Yeah.
yeah, and
Oh, De
Sunny.
Chalte I love.
Bhagban, which
Oh,
is
good
one of the
lord.
worst films I have ever seen.
Terrible.
Main Prem Ki Diwani Hoon, another classic
Ooh,
crap masterpiece.
very cringy.
Munabai MBBS,
Oh, that's very good.
LOC Cargill, which I've never seen, but
Have I seen it?
um,
No.
Andaz, which I do not know
Lara
what that
Datta,
is. Yes, 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 yes.
Priyanka Chopra, I think.
And then
Akshay Kumar.
Kayamat City Under Threat.
I don't know that
Those are the
movie.
top 10. So I'm kind of just looking at some of the other ones. Boot came out that year. Boom came out that year, which is a
Okay.
film I have not seen, but I know I need to. Calcutta Mail, Chori Chori, is a film I know quite a few people really love. Um, let's see, Dil Ka Rishta. That's another one I
The Aishwarya
remember.
movie?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
We got Ek Aur Ek Gyara with Govinda.
Hmm.
Still getting some Govinda movies in there. Hawa with Taboo.
Oh, that's the
Um,
movie in which she gets raped by a ghost.
oh dear God. Okay.
Yes, this
I
is
will
how I
not be watching
remember
that.
this movie. No, don't watch it.
Hungama, which is one of the Akshay Khanna movies of that era, which I have definitely seen. I'm not going to tell you it's good. I've seen it.
Mm.
Ishq Vishk, remember that one? With
Shahid
Shahid.
Kapoor? Yeah,
Yeah,
I know that
Namita
one.
Rao. Yeah. Jankar Beats, which I know is a film a lot of people really
Oh yeah,
like.
I like that.
Joggers Park. I remember that being a thing.
Mm.
Oh, with Sunny, we have Kaise Kahun Ke Pyar Hai.
I do not know this movie.
Um, what else do we have? Khushi with Karina and
You love
Fardeen
that.
Khan, that film I like. Yeah. Kuch To Hai with Tushar Kapoor and Aisha Deol.
Wow, that was a lot
Uh,
of movies coming out that year.
I mean, there's a lot of
That's a
movies, but a
lot.
lot of these are not maybe particularly notable.
But like Koi Mil Gaya and Munna Bhai MBBS were huge. I mean,
Yeah,
Munna
yeah,
Bhai
yeah,
MBBS was great. And
yeah.
so that was Vidya Balan's first film. And
Oh,
then boom, so
wow.
we got Katrina Kaif that year.
Yeah. Also
Interesting.
hard to imagine she's been in the film industry for 20 years.
Yes, without
Fairly
speaking a word of
shocking.
Hindi. Quite amazing. Or any acting either.
Yeah. And I mean, there's many more, but those are the ones that caught me as like, oh yeah, I remember that existing, even if I've never seen it.
Yeah.
So this is not a year where I personally am looking back going like, "Yeah, what a bumper year,
Yeah.
for films that I really love and that I feel have held up well. So,
Right.
you know,
Quite a big year for Preeti though. I
yep,
mean, because
yep,
this one, Koi Mil Gaya was a gigantic hit.
yep.
And then she also had Chori Chori. That was a big hit as
Hmm.
well. So like this was definitely when like Preeti's star was like, she was a big, big A-list heroine.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Interesting.
Oh, and she's in Arman that year with Amitabh, Anil
Oh, I like that
Kapoor,
one. That's actually a good movie.
and The Hero, right? Love Story of a Spy. Yeah,
Yeah, that
those
one
are
I think
her.
sank without a trace, but she was good in Arman. She was kind
Yeah.
of it was a little bit what is that movie with Glenn Close where she boils the rabbit? Fatal
Oh,
Fatal Attraction?
Fatal Attraction.
Is that the
Yeah.
one? Yeah, her character was a little bit like that. Like not
Okay.
the same,
Oh,
but
okay.
as in like she's kind of like stalking Anil Kapoor. It was interesting to see Preeti
Hmm.
do a negative role.
Hmm.
She was she was good in that.
Yeah, I
Um
might check that out. That sounds interesting.
yeah. Cool. Do you have any closing thoughts? Okay, so I have to tell our viewers that when Beth was like, should we do an episode? Because we have this person on Twitter who suggested we do it for the 20th anniversary. And both of us had forgotten that it was the 20th anniversary of this film. And
Totally.
I was like, I guess, I don't know. I'm ambivalent. And then Beth was like, I was like, our schedule is very full. And then she said, also, besides, I don't know what I'm going to say for like one whole hour. I was like, oh, don't worry, Beth. It's okay. I'm sure we'll
Lo and behold,
finding things to say has never
as
been a Beth and
usual,
Pitu problem.
we have done it.
Yes. I even told her that like she would probably devote 30 minutes to Pretty Woman alone.
And I did
Which I
not.
have to say, you did not, but I have to say that is such a well choreographed song. Actually,
It's a
Farah
delight.
Khan, Farah Khan is so good in this movie as a choreographer. It's the time to disco, beautifully choreographed. Pretty Woman, beautifully choreographed. I mean, I feel like she gets enough credit for being like just
Yes.
a mind-bogglingly good choreographer. But I mean, if you look at Pretty Woman, it's so complicated. It's on the street. There is this huge cast of like background dancers, basically. They're all doing their own thing. There's a lot of stuff happening. There's streamers, there's other actors, there's Lilith Dubey going crazy. There's all sorts of madness happening. And it's just so well done. Just such a good song.
Yeah. Uh, just FYI, the 20th anniversary of Mehuna will be in April. So we're gonna have to do that because that's one of my
Yes.
favorites.
That is cute. I can't wait to like drool over Sushmita Sen in that movie. I think that is one of the few films where it's like I watch it for Shahrukh, but I end up drooling over someone else. But like Sushmita in those chiffon saris with the stringy little blouses and the hair, oh, How come we never have teachers like that? I never had a good looking teacher like that. Never, neither male nor female. So, okay, well, that concludes this episode of Filmy Ladies. Thank you for watching along. Mini Khan says goodbye to you guys. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and give us any suggestions you have. Although, as Beth said, our schedule is full. And we'll see you next week. Bye.